Alleluia. The two photographs at the beginning of this video are of the CAP 3 that I was a part of. We were a fairly diverse group of people coming from different countries. There were 4 German people, 1 Dutch, 1 Scottish person, 1 Canadian and 3 English people. And we came together for the very first month that we're there. We spent most of that time within a classroom kind of setup, and people came in who were members of the foundation and talked to us about the history of the foundation and also the work that they did and the work that was expected of us on coming into the membership. At that time, the membership was really very much about service. Service to the community, service to the planet. And so this was the real emphasis that was put on us, that we were there to serve. I personally had no problem with that, but I know a lot of people didn't like the idea of service. That seemed to be a demeaning kind of thing for some people, but for me, I was quite happy about that. The accommodation was pretty tight at the time, and there were really no rooms that were spare, and so we found ourselves sharing. The 3 guys were sharing the one room, quite a smallish room together, and then all the women were all sharing. The foundation goes through different times when there seems to be space for people to have a room on their own, and then there are other times when every space has been taken and people have to double up. The group was led by someone who is known as a focalizer. It's a word that the foundation uses for someone who holds the focus for whatever is happening, and we were very lucky to have someone called Judy Buhler, who was a long-term member of the foundation, and so it was great to have her. One of the things that we had to do during that month time together was to share our life stories. A little bit like I've done here on YouTube's, trying to remember the things that were really important to share with this group who you were going to be spending a lot of time with. For me, it was a decision to come out as a gay man, and so I made this decision that there was no way that I couldn't come out as a gay person within this group, although I probably had a feeling that most of them knew that I was gay. But there's a difference about people thinking that you're gay and actually verbalizing and saying, yeah, this is who I am, this is part of who I am. It was a kind of a strange time for me, really. I'd never had a relationship with a woman, and so I started to think, well, maybe I should open up to the possibility of having a relationship with a woman. And so I was prepared for this to happen, but in actual fact, what happened for me was that I didn't get into a relationship with women, and I was very connected to a couple of the people within the group who were women, and I had this very loving connection to one of them in particular, And whenever we see each other after all the years that we don't see each other, it's an amazing experience to feel this heart connection with this person. But opening up to this possibility of my part of my sexuality that I hadn't experienced was, I think, important, and to allow that to happen or not to happen. It was a fairly difficult time for me also, because having left my home in Wales and knowing that I kind of had deserted a partner and left him there on his own, it wasn't a particularly happy time for me, but I knew that this was the place that I needed to be in, and that there was no question that I could not stay. I had to stay. So after a month of all these talking and sharings, we came to the end of that time, and it was then time for us to make a decision as to what department we were going to commit ourselves to. And this decision on on going to a department was done by an attunement. An attunement is a time spent primarily, I guess, closing one's eyes and going inside to try and discover, where do I feel that I need to be? Where can I serve this community best? And for many people it was an easy decision. I was quite happy to go pretty well anywhere. Some people, when it came to actually picking out from a tray, because we had each department put in that they wanted a particular person, and so a list was made and they were put on a tray, and then each person, after this attunement was over, picked one of the little labels off this tray. And for some people it was extremely hard, and for one person in particular, I remember, she was very much a garden and an outside person, and really wanted to go outside, but she actually got to pick to go into the kitchen. And I remember it was a very stressful time for her and also for the group, and in many ways it was a part of the process of getting ourselves into the community. The group was an incredibly supportive group, and I loved all of those people who were in that group. We had a very graceful time really together, and I don't remember any instance where we actually really fell out. And that didn't mean that we weren't honest and we weren't upfront with each other. And often that's quite a daring and stressful thing to do, but it's what the community wants of you. Anyone coming into that community needs to learn to be upfront with each other, to say your truth. So what happened within this attunement was that somebody said, well, you know, I'm quite happy to release the garden, and you could have the garden and I'll take over this going into the kitchen. So it was incredibly graceful that time. And then of course all of us went into our new departments. My department for the first few months, I think for 2 months probably, was to work in the dining room, which I'd worked in before and was very happy to go back there. It's an incredibly beautiful room, and so to spend time in there was very graceful for me. And I'll talk more about that and also the future that I spent there in the next 2 years. So I'll leave it here and say goodbye.